Bitcoin, a peer-to-peer electronic cash system. Why did Satoshi choose the words peer-to-peer? I think it's in a reference to the torrent community, in which there was a peer-to-peer upload and download of files, and specifically of certain files and agreed upon ones that, probably popularized by Napster and LimeWire and FrostWire and those things. But it was an opt-in network that was between peers, so it wasn't a centralized source. Like right now, if you were to go on the internet and you use a browser to download a file, it would come from a server or something like a CDN, which is a content distribution network. And that is a silo. That is a server that you can pull from. But in the peer-to-peer network, what it is you say, I want to get this file. Now, who has access to it? Who is a seed for it? And the protocol will give you a list of the nodes or computers or whatnot that can act like servers to, and they can upload bits, packets of that file for you to download. So in a peer-to-peer electronic cash system, what Satoshi is referencing is a move away from these silos, these centralized silos of information and of guaranteeing the validity of information into a peer-to-peer architecture. Now, why does he use the word cash? Well, cash is a fungible technology. It is one in which there's a unit that can be traded for another unit. $1 equals another dollar, no matter on what paper it is printed and what year it is printed. It is a fungible currency. And the word cash also assumes a form of issuance. And so Bitcoin set out to be an electronic cash system, which is a peer-to-peer system. In becoming a system, it required a state, a reference of information to come back to. It's a ledger, and an ability to hold and modify a ledger in a decentralized fashion. Previously, to verify modifications to a ledger required digital signatures. But digital signatures require a trusted third party or an entity to verify them, to stamp them and say, yeah, this happened. And so what Satoshi set out to do is to incorporate these digital signatures into a currency, but have them hashed onto a timestamp. Therefore, the validator is not a third party, but the block at which it was hashed. Now, what is a hash function? Well, a hash function is a one-way, deterministically probabilistic function that takes an input of a finite set of characters and returns an output of a set amount of pseudo-random bits. Now, what does that all mean? It means that, probabilistically speaking, that if you take two inputs that will seem similar in our minds, like for example the word grass and the word gas, and use them as inputs into a hash function, they will probabilistically have very, 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 very different output sets. And all that means that you cannot likely guess what the output will be based on the input. And so what that allows us to do is kind of mirror the engine of the universe. Because a hash function is applied chaos in a limited set of outcomes. And so it is a virtual simulation with finite computational cycles. It must end, there must come an output, finite inputs, there must be some sort of end to the message that you want to input into the function, and finite outputs. There's a limited set of characters, which means there's a limited set of possible outcomes. And this, I think, is a very anthropocentric way to attempt to mirror the assumed determinism of the universe, because in the universe it seems like there is infinite computational cycles. For example, we have evolution and Gaia able to use life cycles to pass down information through DNA, RNA, through energy in terms of heat dissipation, and there's seemingly no end, and there is infinite amount of inputs, and there's an infinite set of outputs. Now this is something that I think philosophers have battled for some time, in terms of trying to solve the question of why do things happen. I think as humans we can marvel at the idea of what happens, and enjoy it as a happening, but to be able to say that a certain happening is all that happened is a limited set of views. For example, the blossoming of a flower entails some sort of a derivation of nutrition by the plant that is sent into the petals and into reproduction, and we might glamour at the plant and be like, wow, what a great flower, such beautiful colors that reach my eyes. But a bee might fly by and see the flower and see that it's decaying and dying because it sees some sort of ultraviolet reflection that we can't see off of it. And so we always have this limited set of views that is actually part of this anthropocentric view, and us coming to understand that these finite outputs. Now, the Bitcoin protocol requires timestamps. Now, these timestamps are not based on the UTC protocol. They're not based on a series of milliseconds that happened after 1970. It is actually a very, very ingenious solution, and what it is a relative timestamp based on the block height of the blockchain. And so the block height is how many blocks have been mined or chained onto each other as of this transaction. And so it is no longer speaking in terms of minutes or hours or days or based on some sort of revolutions around the sun. It is based on how many transactions have been added to the ledger. Now, the Bitcoin protocol is designed in such a way that, probabilistically speaking, the difficulty to mine a block on the blockchain will be set at a rate of 10 minutes per a block. And this is, I think, calibrated approximately every 2 weeks according to a set amount of blocks, and that I don't know right now. So existing financial institutions exist on a trust-based model. So what does that mean? It means that in an attempt to solve the need for mediation through interpersonal parties, sellers and buyers, the financial institutions have created an interinstitutional network, which means we rely on institutions to mediate our conflicts. Think of credit cards and chargebacks. If you have an issue with a seller or somebody fraudulently using your card to purchase something, then you perform a chargeback and say, that wasn't me. And now the credit card company is on the line for mediating that purchase. That is a recent phenomenon. I mean, when before in history have we been able to say, hey, that wasn't me, with the way we spend our money? Partly it is to blame, to thank perhaps globalization, and the fungibility of being able to move currency from one location to another in a ledger throughout all kinds of borders and things that we haven't been able to imagine. But in doing so, we've had to do so through these limited communication channels, and these limited communication channels have not allowed us to build trust between person to person. The need for an institution to step in and mediation does not exist on the personal level in the physical realm. Like, for example, think of a farmer's market. If you buy 3 squashes from a farmer at the farmer's market, then you need not go out to an institution to mediate some sort of conflict that you might have with this farmer. You go to that man and you say, well, you did not give me the right amount of squashes. I overpaid, etc., etc. But once you've limited that, well, let's say once you've gone into a chat, once you have gone into an abstract form of communication through some sort of institution, that is when you cannot build trust between people, and that's when you need to build trust through institutions. Now, what does that look like? Well, that looks like a reputation economy. Let me say that again. Reputation economy. Now, somebody that an organization that has really excelled at building reputation economies is eBay. On eBay, there are buyers and there are sellers. And sellers are, what do they ask for after you receive a product from them in the mail? Please leave me a review, a good review at that. And so when you look up a seller on their profile on eBay, you see their name, their username, the items they have for sale, and how many reviews they have, and of what value, from 1 to 5 stars. They have created a reputation economy. And so when you've lost the ability to gain or lose trust between person to person in a digital economy, you rely on these abstract institutions and their reputation to take care of that for you. But there is a cost for that. There's a cost for that mediation. Visa is able to mediate conflicts between sellers and buyers with their chargebacks, but they take 3% of every transaction. I mean, imagine taking 3% of every credit card transaction that happens in the United States in a single day. How much money would line your pockets? And this is a cost that is being eaten up by small businesses, corporations, and it's an arcane idea. So when institutions cannot avoid mediating disputes, and as such, non-reversible transactions are not possible, which leads to reversible payments of non-reversible services. Our perception of time is linear. There's A leads to B leads to C. Now, if you're from step A is beginning to purchase a product and step C is purchasing that product, you have exchanged funds for a service or for a good. Often, that if it's a service, it is not reversible. I mean, try getting a massage and saying, "Hey, I'm sorry, but can I have that massage back? I don't feel like paying you anymore." It doesn't make sense. So in an understanding, it's a return to nature. Mother Nature does not mediate. She either involves or evolves. So she either involves the individual, the person, the personality, to take their money elsewhere, to make a decision, but to move on, or to get involved with a different organization for those type of goods in future. It's a sort of saying of everybody has their price, and every institution has their price. And once they've lost that trust, then they take their money elsewhere, or it evolves. It creates something better to take care of this. For example, let me see. During the Prohibition of the 1920s, there was this force by certain American Protestants to ban the consumption of alcohol and selling of alcohol. And so what that led to is an evolution of transportation, because bootleggers necessitated being able to transport contraband, technically, which is alcohol, very quickly from location to location to not be caught by law enforcement agencies. And what that did is it necessitated the evolution of faster transportation and more rugged transportation, which led to the great expansion of pimped out Ford vehicles. Humans did not anticipate such an evolution, but Mother Nature necessitated it, that it happened that way. And so with these transactions, with the possibility for reversal, the need for trust spreads. The need for trust in an organization spreads. I mean, this is a verbatim quote from Satoshi Nakamoto's white paper. But if you remove the need for the possibility of reversal, you remove the need for a trusted party. So what can take place of that trust? Cryptographic proof.